Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so the entire global shipping industry just got a brand new rulebook for carbon emissions, and it is a huge deal. Today, we're going to break down how one single, massive container ship didn't just play by the new rules, it created a master plan to completely change the game.
So here's the big question, right? How do you take a vessel that's literally the size of a skyscraper tipped on its side and make it more fuel efficient? We're about to dive into how one ship's crew answered that, providing a masterclass in efficiency that the whole industry can learn from. And the challenge all starts right here, with something called the Carbon Intensity Indicator, or CII. You can pretty much think of it as a mandatory report card for every big cargo ship on the planet. They get a grade, from A to E, on their carbon efficiency. And here's the kicker. They're expected to get a better grade year after year after year.
So, how did this one specific ship, a 9,200 TEU container vessel, and just to put that in perspective, that's a ship that can carry over 9,000 standard shipping containers. How did it rise to this challenge? Well, they weren't just aiming to pass the test. They were aiming to ace it. Their success didn't come from some single magic bullet solution. Nope. It was a comprehensive master plan built on 4 key pillars. It was a whole new way of thinking that connected everything from the initial planning on shore to every single decision made out on the high seas. Let's break down their strategy. First things first, they completely re-engineered how they planned their journeys. It turns out some of the most important work happened long before the ship even untied from the dock. This was the bedrock of the whole operation. They started using really advanced weather routing to find the absolute smartest path through the ocean. Dodging bad weather that would force the engines to work harder. They coordinated with ports for something called just-in-time arrival. And they even used software to simulate different scenarios, letting them see how a tiny change in speed today could impact their final grade weeks down the road. And think about how brilliant that just-in-time arrival is. Instead of racing to the destination port, only to drop anchor and just sit there waiting, burning tons of fuel for hours, maybe even days, they timed their voyage perfectly to slide right into the berth the moment it was ready. Such a simple concept, but with a massive, massive impact on fuel savings. But, smarter planning is only half the battle. What the crew did once the ship was actually out at sea, how they managed its speed and its power, was every bit as crucial. And this, right here, this might be the most powerful secret weapon they had. It's this incredible, almost unbelievable relationship between a ship's speed and how much fuel it burns. Deliberately slowing down, what the industry calls slow steaming, it doesn't just save a little bit of fuel, it saves a staggering amount. So you can see the trade-off, right? By combining that just-in-time planning with an optimized speed, the ship gets there exactly when it needs to, but the fuel burn is way, way lower, which means their CII rating gets way, way better. They basically traded wasted speed for maximum efficiency. It's a win-win. And it goes even deeper than just speed. The crew was obsessed with fine-tuning everything. They adjusted the ship's balance in the water, its trim, to cut down on drag. They constantly monitored the main engine to make sure it was running in its absolute sweet spot for fuel consumption. They were ruthless about shutting down any extra generators, and they even used waste heat from the engine to make hot water instead of firing up the boilers. Every single drop of energy was accounted for. But there's another, almost invisible battle they had to fight, and it was happening right on the ship's hull. It's called biofouling, basically a slimy buildup of algae and barnacles. And this stuff acts like sandpaper on the hull, creating immense drag and forcing that engine to burn a lot more fuel just to keep the same speed. So they fought back hard. The ship was coated with a special high-performance paint that makes it hard for marine life to even stick. They scheduled proactive, eco-friendly cleanings to keep the hull perfectly smooth. They even polished the propeller regularly to get rid of any tiny nicks or damage. And all of this was tracked constantly, just to make sure the ship was cutting through the water as cleanly as humanly possible. Okay, so you've got all these different strategies going on at once. How in the world do you keep track of it all and know if what you're doing is actually working? Well, the answer was a powerful mix of data, diligence, and, most importantly, the crew itself. And believe it or not, it all started with this, the daily noon report. Every single day, at noon, the crew would meticulously log these key data points. And I mean meticulously. Accuracy was absolutely everything, because this simple report was the single source of truth for the entire efficiency program. But that data wasn't just collected and forgotten in some dusty logbook. No way. It was immediately plugged into onboard software, which gave the ship's master and chief engineer real-time feedback. They could see, day by day, exactly how their decisions were affecting their fuel use and, of course, that all-important CII rating.
But look, all the technology, all the smart planning, all the data in the world, none of it would have mattered without the final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle, a fundamental shift in the crew's mindset.
This quote from the crew, man, it just says it all. This is the real takeaway. To succeed, it took a cultural shift. It was about empowering every single person on board, from the captain on the bridge to the engineers deep in the engine room, to think differently. It was about making efficiency a part of every single decision, every single day. This story of this one ship proves what's possible when you bring together technology, smart planning, and a totally committed crew. It's a blueprint for a cleaner future, and it leaves us with one really critical question for the entire global shipping industry to think about.